I know why you're here. The pieces of emotional shrapnel you have carried for so long. Are you willing to soar? Are you ready to let go? Then...
Oh hey, did you miss me?
The long-awaited third studio album by Sleep Token was finally released in May of 2023. A year has passed since then, which has given us ample time to really reflect on the experience we have been given. Now, I know you all love hearing about the lore, mysteries, and secrets we uncover, so before we get into the main topic of the video, I'm gonna share some of the interesting things we have managed to find since the release of Eden. In a prior video, I already covered a bit of the Eden Code and how our group were the first people to translate it. Since then, the full alphabet has been released, and nowadays pretty much everyone has the means to use it easily. I've seen a lot of people that have gotten the Eden runes tattooed on their body, but very few folks actually know what they are or where they come from. The alphabet itself is derived from an old Masonic pigpan cipher, said to have originated from Hebrew rabbis. It was used by the Knights Templar during the Crusades, and later used so often by the Freemasons that the cipher is now frequently called the Freemasons cipher. The cipher itself is basically a method to encrypt a message using shapes and a specific number rule set agreed between the sender and the receiver. If you wish to delve deeper into how they work, there are good videos here on YouTube explaining everything in detail. The cryptic runes were not the only thing that we were given. With the first singles, we also got our first view of the characters, these ominous figures. They would accompany each new release, and since every song has its own character, many people have speculated if they hold any meaning or deeper relevance to the tracks or to the lore. My personal interpretation of them is very much in line with the theme of the Eden album, which I will get into later in the video. I see each character as being an aspect of the subconscious mind, an internal struggle that Vessel faces. Lust, rage, fear, resentment, self-hate, regret, and more. The 12 horsemen of a broken mind, the sum of his past and the direction of his future, being faced in an introspective showdown, a final monumental challenge that he must overcome. We have found a bunch of references used for various aspects of the album artwork, and I won't go over them all as it would take too long, and more importantly, because some things are just better left in the dark. But with all due respect to Alex, I really hope that the band brings back Dan from Nemesis Design. With that being said, I'm not just gonna leave you hanging here, so let's highlight one of the most interesting discoveries, which can be found in relation to the artwork for Euclid. The image itself is a reference to Caravaggio's David with the Head of Goliath, that depicts a scene from the biblical myth of David versus Goliath, where David holds out the head of Goliath after killing him. The focus of the painting isn't really the victory of David, but the death of Goliath. David doesn't appear as a triumphant hero, but bears an expression of sadness and compassion, someone who feels bad for their victim. An interesting detail that ties into the artwork for Euclid is the fact that the artist modeled Goliath after his own face. In other words, he depicted his own death. At this point in his life, he was a wanted and hunted man, so the painting can be seen as him offering himself up and seeking redemption, an important piece of information that we will be discussing later on. All of us take different paths through life, some easier than others. Life can be beautiful, life can be cruel, life is ever evolving, and so are we. I don't know your story, and you don't know mine, but somehow both of our stories have found themselves mashed into the fabric of sound that we have been given. The music that Vessel writes has this subtle but elegant feature of leaving just enough room for us to be able to fill in the gaps with our own experiences, both the good and bad. This inherently makes each of our paths slightly different, but we all resonate on the same wavelength when it comes to the impact that it has on us. One could say Sleep Token is the ultimate Rorschach test. And when I look at the ink blots, I see a journey that I want to share with you. The Trilogy of Trauma. Sundowning is our first entry, and in this tale, I regard it as the source. This is where the event and the subsequent trauma takes root. This album takes us along on a visceral tug of war between a dream state of desire, pleasure, and attraction versus the terrified, rage-filled, desperate pleading from the death rattles of a turbulent relationship. A serotonin-laced blade that makes us smile while it slowly becomes the end of us. This album is Vessel tumbling through raw emotion, like an exposed nerve meeting the air around it, reacting instantaneously to each moment and impulse. We journey through this emotional tailspin until we finally arrive at the sorrowful conclusion, to the sound of a sobbing and broken vessel at the end of Bloodsport. A song that expresses a final desperate plea after a point of no return. This album was my first introduction to Sleep Token, and it's hard to describe just how blown away and how fascinated I was by the universe and soundscape they had created. This was where they first introduced their full scope and the cornerstones that define them. A warm analog presence, progressive tracks, amazing vocals, insane drumming, with the greatest sounding snare known to man, synths, heavy breakdowns, raw emotion, and a willingness to step outside of the traditional path of genre limitation. My highlights from this album would have to be The Offering, Higher, Dark Signs, and Bloodsport. Second entry in our trilogy, This Place Will Become Your Tomb. We continue the journey by deflating our life vest and treading water amongst the waves in the endless ocean of a sinking mind. The initial impact of trauma has seeped into the mental caverns where depression has taken hold and slowly pulls Vessel under. The crushing numbness is broken by mania and sporadic gasps for air above the waves, where expressions of love, longing, and lust are allowed to ripple across the surface until we once again descend to the cold, dark numbness. Beneath the waves, control is lost as Vessel is pulled down by the weight of regret, loneliness, sadness, guilt, fear, hopelessness, self-doubt, and most devastating of all, the hesitant realization that they will never be together. This new reality we witness on the album actually begins with an attempt to escape it. Atlantic describes Vessel's harsh experience of waking up after trying to leave this world, an attempt that, sadly to this day, can be physically witnessed on pictures from live shows. The soul-crushing song is the mental barometer for this part of the Trilogy of Trauma. It's an indicator and a warning of the depths that we are venturing out into. A deep numbness and torturing waves of emotion, which are further exemplified by the Fall For Me video. Now, I really liked Sundowning, but I felt absolutely in love with Tomb. It's my favorite Sleep Token album, and in my opinion, the best album they made for a few reasons. When it comes to the themes, the visuals, the sonics, none of the other albums are as cohesive or give us the level of detail that this gem presents us with. On the audio side of things, the album is held together by elements that all resemble sounds related to the ocean, be it waves crashing, water rushing, air bubbles rising, rolling, crushing depths, and more, expressed through clicks, static, echoes, and a muffled effect that reverberates on almost every track. I highly recommend you listen to the instrumental versions of the songs with these details in mind. You will appreciate this project even more. The very first time I heard the big drop in Atlantic, it literally felt like my soul expanded out of my body. It was truly an otherworldly feeling, and I have a hard time thinking of a better opening song to an album. Besides Atlantic, I would also highlight Alkaline, Like That, Distraction, High Water, Missing Limbs, and one of my all-time favorite Sleep Token songs, Telomeres. All in all, a finely crafted masterpiece. A rush of waves from Atlantic all the way down to High Water, which I would call the final Song of Tomb, while Missing Limbs acts like a tragic epilogue. Finally, we arrive at Take Me Back to Eden. Our journey has led us to a crossroad, a choice that Vessel must make. Continue to exist in a fantasy, living in a never-ending cycle of torment, nightmares, and self-destruction, just to feel the fleeting glimpses of reality long since past, or open up to a brutal, introspective war that ultimately will either free him, letting him find inner peace, or doom him into seeing the past repeat itself forever. In a reality full of sin, pain, loss, and injustice, will he always be consumed by it, or finally stand in defiance? The battle lines are drawn. They set fire to the Garden of Eden. They expand into the heavens and out into the now expanding cosmos of Vessel's mind. In this limitless space, the music extends forever in every direction, giving a truly godly feel to the epics of the album. With this record, we saw the band lean even further into genre bending and a continued refusal to be confined or to be labeled by any traditional approach to making metal music. Catapulted into the limelight by the song The Summoning, the album features larger-than-life songs such as the title track, Ascensionism, Vor, and The Apparition. The emotional roller coaster is intensified through songs such as Do You Wish That You Loved Me, Are You Really Okay, and Euclid. Listening to this album, it became apparent to me that something was different. There were, of course, the obvious things, such as a change in the mixing, a change in production, but there was also something else, something more subtle, but incredibly important. It was the presence of hope. This sparked something in me that made me view the album in a very specific light. A light that plays an important part in our journey through the trilogy of trauma. I'm by no means a psychologist, okay? But I do know just enough to make some interesting observations and interpretations. In order to share them with you, I'm going to introduce you to a few things to add context and to add understanding to the story that I'm trying to tell. These concepts are obviously large topics, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to keep it as short and simple as possible. Now, the first concept is something called metacognitive therapy. It's a type of psychotherapy used to treat a range of mental ailments, including trauma. The core goal of this type of therapy is to change the way that we perceive thoughts and to replace the unhealthy coping strategies with healthy ones. An important part of treatment is to become an observer of your own thoughts, of your own actions, and then you take a step back, and then you reflect, you accept, or you release. And why do I bring this up in relation to this album? Well, because of that hope that I mentioned earlier. While sundowning was the initial shock response, and Tomb was the depression, Eden is the first sign of healing. He isn't recovering quite yet, but he's taking the first steps in overcoming the demons that haunt him. Delving a little deeper into these first steps, we can take a look at the song Do You Wish That You Loved Me? These are the lyrics. Do you ever believe that we can turn into different people? It's getting harder to be myself. Do you wish that you loved me? Could we ever release? Is it better to just not feel? Can we hit delete? Do you wish that you loved me? In a conversation with himself, Vessel is exploring the idea of letting himself move on. He knows that something has to change. The question being if he should accept reality and work through it, or continue masking and suppressing the internal turmoil. Is there still a possibility of him loving himself, or will he distance himself once again? Before we go into the next part, there are two more concepts that we need to introduce: depersonalization and derealization. Both of these concepts, they can be experienced by people undergoing high levels of stress, anxiety, trauma, and more. Depersonalization is a condition where a person feels detached, disconnected from their physical body, from their thoughts and feelings. Derealization is a condition where a person feels detached from their surroundings. People and objects around them seem unreal, like living in a movie or living in a dream. While these concepts are also relevant for Do You Wish That You Loved Me? And many other songs on the album, I believe that they're even more crucial for us to understand the next song that I want to highlight. It's the most personal and emotionally heavy song on the Eden record, and it's called Are You Really Okay? Now, try keeping both depersonalization and derealization in mind for the following part. You woke me up one night, dripping crimson on the carpet. I saw it in your eyes, cutting deeper than the scars could run. Here, once again, Vessel is having a conversation with himself, but this time he's referencing self-harm, which could very well be the same attempt that he sings about on Atlantic. And don't you know, I can see it in you even now. And don't you know, I want to help you, but I don't know how. He's observing himself hurting and struggling to reconnect with both the world and his own being. He has realized that something is terribly wrong, but he doesn't know how to deal with it. He doesn't know how to move forward. He might feel too paralyzed to act right now, but he ends the song with a final desperate plea to himself. Probably the most important line when it comes to our journey through the trilogy of trauma. Please don't hurt yourself again. Just please don't hurt yourself again. Why is this line so important? Well, it shows that even though he feels powerless, even though he doesn't have the answers right now, he has decided that he wants to stay on this earth. He no longer wants to escape at any costs. He wants to regain control and balance. He wants to recover. Finally, I want to highlight a line from the title track. And I don't know what's got its teeth in me, but I'm about to bite back in anger. No amount of self-sought fury will bring back the glory of innocence. In these lines, Vessel expresses that he doesn't entirely know what is hurting him, but he's determined to finally fight back. Instead of just reacting, he's finally observing and reflecting. He realizes that no matter how much pain, no matter how much anger he puts himself through, it will never take him back to Eden. He is seeing that the only way to move forward is to stop looking back. He wants to live, he wants to heal. And this is the final note in the trilogy of trauma. The story itself isn't over, but it's as far as we've come for now. Vessel still has more stages to go through and some very hard internal work that needs to be done, but he has made a final realization and a decision to act on it. It's time to move on.
I know that this video has touched on some very heavy subjects that you might find difficult or uncomfortable to think about. I have met countless people in the community who share so much love, joy, and creativity, but many also carry a lot of pain. Everyone has their own experiences and reasons for feeling hurt or lost, but if you are to remember just one thing from this video, I want you to know that the important part wasn't the struggle, but the presence of hope. You see, your return to Eden was never about bringing back the past, but about loosening yourself from the vines that held you back from growing into your future. Are you willing to soar? Are you ready to let go? Then it's time to leave Eden behind. It's never too late to ask for help, and it's never too late to take a step in the right direction. Show kindness to others, show kindness to yourself. There is always hope. Celebrate life, celebrate love, celebrate yourself. And no matter what, always remember,